In today's episode, we're focusing on how to describe physical appearance in English. This is a key skill for everyday communication, whether you're describing a friend, identifying someone, or telling a story. We'll look at useful vocabulary, natural expressions, and tips to help you sound more fluent and precise. Welcome to
Aprender Inglés with Reza and Craig.
Hi, I'm Reza.
And my name's Craig.
And with nearly 60 years of teaching between us, we'll help you improve your English and take it to the next level. Well, hello everyone. You're all very welcome, particularly if you're a new listener. Craig, what's the crack? How you doing?
What's the crack? The crack is very good, mate. Everything is fine. My end. I will say something that we did record last week's podcast on video. And if we like the way it looks, you can go to YouTube and see it. And if you go there and it's not there, that's because we didn't like the way we looked and we decided not to publish it. So there you are.
Yeah, you'll notice that we're recording this audio-only episode, no video, about describing physical appearance after we recorded the video episode because we just didn't have the nerve to show you ourselves and talk about physical appearance. We thought that's a bridge too far to actually see what we look like while we're describing appearance. A lot of people couldn't stomach that.
Yeah, as Reza often says, we have the perfect face and body for podcasting. So as long as it's not on video, audio podcasts, then we're fine. This week we start with friend of the show, Ezequiel from Argentina, who sent us a message about body language.
Hello, Reza. Hello, Greg. How are you doing? Hope you're doing excellent today. Happy Sunday for you. Well, I've been listening to your latest episode, and I was thinking about your body language, like how are you acting? How are you moving when you are podcasting? I came to the idea, to suggest an episode about body language. Maybe you can make a video for you too, because I know that you do not have a YouTube channel. And well, who knows? Maybe this is your sign to create a YouTube channel and make videos so we can know you, your faces, That's my suggestion for today. Body language episode, for example, I know one that is when you are telling a lie, you usually snitch your nose or something like that. Well, that's it. Thank you very much, guys.
Thank you, Ezequiel. Always a pleasure to get your messages. And I'll say one thing to you. Be careful what you wish for. Be careful what you wish for, because we did do a test, an experiment last week with video. And as I said before, if we think it's okay, we will put it on the YouTube channel, which we do have. We have had a YouTube channel for a long time now, but only the audio. So we just put a static image on the YouTube channel, which is at Inglés Podcast. And I'll link to that in the show notes. And if you go there, you may or may not see the video from last week's episode. And if you like it, if you want to see more, please tell us. Write a comment in the comment section, and we'll consider making more videos of us recording.
Yes, so episode 619, the previous episode, is the first episode which on YouTube will have actual video footage. Possibly. We're still thinking about it. We have to have a look at what we filmed, Ezequiel, and see if it's worth putting up there.
So to see the link and where you can find that YouTube channel, it's in the show notes at inglespodcast.com/620 for this episode, 620, or go to youtube.com/inglespodcast, INGLESPODCAST.
And Ezekiel, just a little comment about a word you said. I think you said when people are telling lies, you said they often, I think you said snitch was the way you said it, snitch their nose. I think you meant the word twitch, slightly different. To snitch with an S is to give information about a friend or an ally to the enemy. That's to snitch. No, whenever you move your nose, you know, when you're lying, a lot of people move their nose. They're going, dear, I hope nobody knows I'm lying, but they give it away in their body language. That is to twitch your nose, not the same as snitch.
Or maybe he meant to touch your nose, which I think is a commonly misunderstood, well, it's a myth. It's not actually true. And we've spoken about body language and signs. For example, when you are lying, how can you tell? How do you know someone's lying? We spoke about that back in episode 238. So to go to the episode on body language, inglespodcast.com/238. And for the romantics listening to the podcast, we spoke about romantic body language in episode 243. So once again, inglespodcast.com/243 for romantic body language.
Yes, romantic body language. We've spoken about that, as we've said many times. Having no idea at all about the topic has never stopped us from recording an episode about something, and it never will.
Although today I think we're feeling a bit more on solid ground, which means we're a bit more confident about what we're saying, because there are many words and expressions you can use in English to describe physical appearance, and that's what you'll learn today. But before we look at different areas of description for physical appearance, how would you describe yourself, Reza?
Not very attractive, let's be honest, from the start.
Many would disagree.
Oh, I wish I could meet those people. I guess I'm average height. I'm not that tall, not that short. And I've got, I'm afraid to say, grey hair. At least I've got most of my hair.
Not completely grey.
Not completely grey, no.
Turning grey, maybe.
Turning grey, yeah. Not quite there yet. But at least I'm not bald. Although I don't have quite as much hair as I used to. It's probably thinning. And I would say I'm a little overweight, but I'm certainly not fat. I'm not obese or anything like that. And I have medium length, straight grey hair, as I said.
Yeah, turning grey or going grey, not completely grey, I'd say. And, well, for me, I'm average height, a little bit, well, I'd say quite overweight. I'm definitely...
No, I disagree.
More, well, thank you, but you're being generous. I need to lose a few pounds. I'm also greying, I'm going grey, and I'm in my early 60s. Clean shaven most of the time, so without a beard or a moustache. I've got brown eyes, and I'm quite stocky. I've got quite a heavy build. So lots of vocabulary and words there, descriptive adjectives. We're going to look at all of those for you in this episode. But let's start with the category of age. I said I'm in my early 60s. Reza, what other expressions are there to speak about someone's age?
Well, let's start at the beginning. You could be young. So young isn't very specific, it's true. Obviously, if you're 3 years old, you're young. But obviously, in the eyes of a 60-year-old, they see someone who's 30 as young.
Or 50.
Or 50, even if you're 80, 50 seems young.
Everything's relative.
So it's all relative. So young isn't a very specific word, but it's a very common word. And if you want to make it even less specific, and sometimes that's a good idea, when you're describing people, you don't want to be too specific, add ish at the end. So she's young-ish. By saying ish, that means she's more or less young. Young-ish.
Another word you could use is youthful. So if you have a youthful appearance, then you're definitely fairly energetic looking, maybe athletic. So you have a youthful appearance.
Craig, would you accept, because it is debatable, that you and I are middle-aged?
I would say you are middle-aged, and I would say I am not old-ish. Maybe old-ish, yeah. because I think I've passed middle age. I think middle age, if you agree, is probably in your 40s, in your 50s. Would you agree?
For me these days, I'd go up to 60 these days. Maybe in the past I would have said 60 is getting old, but these days I think you can be in your 60s, and if you don't look too old, you could call yourself middle-aged, because life expectancy is higher than it used to be.
That's very generous of you, and hey, I'll take it. I mean, I'll take anything. Now, we've mentioned old a few times. Old, when you're describing people, isn't very complimentary. It's not really nice to call somebody old. It's much more politically correct, as we mentioned last week in our episode about being a bit more woke and a bit more politically correct, or PC. It's probably better to say elderly. So an elderly person is starting to get towards the end of their life, let's say.
And if you want to say it in a gentle way, or maybe even a humorous way, rather than old, you could say that someone is getting on a bit. So imagine you have a friend who's 75 years old. He's not young, he's getting on a bit. He's no spring chicken, you could also say. So spring, obviously, is the first part of the year, is spring. No spring chicken. Or he's over the hill. Over the hill means you've climbed up the hill, right? And now metaphorically, you're past the top bit. So I'm afraid it's all downhill after now, very, very fast decline. So over the hill is a euphemistic way of saying old, or no spring chicken, or getting on a bit.
Yeah, my dad was quite healthy until he was in his early 80s, and then he got quite ill, and they put butter on his back. And then he went downhill really fast.
Oh, very good. Very good.
I haven't told a joke for a while. I feel quite good about that. Now, I said earlier I was in my 60s. You can use that expression to approximately describe somebody's age. So you can say that somebody is in his 20s or in her 30s. I'm in my 60s. Reza is in his 50s. So it's in, and then the pronoun, and then the decade with an S, in your 20s, in your teens, etc.
Yeah, to be specific, I'm in my mid-50s. I'm 55. You can't get any more middle than that. So let's say from about 53, 4, 5, 6, that kind of age, mid something. So you can be early something, early 50s. You'll be 50, 51, maybe 52. Mid 50s, 53, 4, 5, or 4, 5, 6, 7 maybe. And then late something, 58, 59. And you can apply that to any age, mid 50s, mid 40s. You could also say early teens, mid-teens, late teens. So your late teens would be 17, 18, 19. 13 would be your early teens, for example.
So those are expressions for age. And again, you can see these words, this vocabulary listed on the website, inglespodcast.com/620. Let's move on to hair and some facial features, some characteristics of your face. Be careful with hair, because we don't tend to use it as a countable noun, because if you say that someone has a dark hair, then you're only talking about one specific hair on their head and not all of their hair together. So there's no article. You just say that someone has dark hair. Maybe they have short hair, long hair, or shoulder length hair. So you can say somebody has, or you can say they've got. And it's probably more common in spoken English, especially in British English, to say that someone's got. So Reza's got quite long hair at the moment. I've got short hair. Maybe my sister has shoulder length hair down to the length of her shoulders.
Yeah, as you say, it's more common to say he's got, she's got, and it's definitely more informal. That's why it's more common. But if I were writing formally about someone, I would probably say he has or she has. Strangely, if you take away a word, it actually is more formal. He has sounds a little bit more formal than he's got.
Yeah, it's also more common in American English to use have and has. You can also have straight hair. and wavy hair. If you think of the sea, the waves in the sea when it's moving is not completely flat and straight. It has waves, it's wavy. And you can have curls. So if you have curls, the adjective is curly. To have curly hair, very tight rings of hair on your head. That's curly hair.
Craig, I've never seen you with very long hair. I've only ever seen you with really pretty short hair. So I don't know if your hair, when it grows, is straight, wavy or curly. What does it look like when it grows?
A bit of a mess, to be honest, which is why I like to keep
wavy?
it short.
Is it curly?
It's not curly, and it's not completely straight. I would say it's on the wavy side, so it's a little bit wavy, yeah. And it just tends to, instead of growing down like most people's hair would normally do, it kind of grows out, and it makes me look like I'm wearing a wig. A wig, W-I-G, that is hair that is not your hair. You can take another person's hair or have artificial hair and put that on your head, which is what some people do if they're losing their hair. So yeah, it makes me look like I've got this strange wig on because it's growing out rather than down. It's very weird.
And have you ever had a fringe?
No, I haven't, as far as I can remember. Maybe when I was younger, because my hair changed. It's changed over the years. It used to be very straight and silky, and now it's wiry. It's harder. It's tougher. It's not so soft. So a fringe, if you don't know, that's when the hair comes down at the front of your head, over your forehead, and it's a line of hair that grows down above your eyes. And if it's in a straight line, we call that a fringe. And if you have hair at the back of your head that grows down your back and it's quite long, and you tie it so that it comes together, that's a ponytail. Pony, like a horse. Imagine the tail of a horse. And that's called a ponytail when it grows down at the back. And another Americanism, a fringe is very common in British English, but in US American English, they call them bangs, don't they? B-A-N-G-S.
Oh, that's right, yeah.
Bangs.
Now, another hairstyle, which used to be a lot more popular than it is now, although it is slowly coming back, is a perm. It's short for permanent. A perm is not natural. A perm is when you have something done to your hair to make it, in theory, permanently, but it isn't permanently. It's actually just for a few months, curly. So particularly in the 1970s and 1980s, it was very common for women to go to the hairdressers and get a perm, get something done to their hair to make it very curly. But if you're, for example, an Afro-American, you probably have naturally curly hair if you let it grow long. So you don't have a perm, you have an afro. That's natural. So a perm is when you get it done artificially. Craig, do you think perms will become big again?
I can't see it becoming permanent, no.
Oh.
I don't think perms will come back permanently, in my opinion. I mentioned before that I'm usually clean shaven when I can be bothered to take out the Reza and have a shave. But if you don't...
the Reza?
No, not you, Reza. No, a Reza. Different pronunciation, isn't it? It's Reza, not Razor. Your name is Reza. But if you do let your hair grow on your face, gentlemen, then you have a beard. And if it's only growing under your nose, it's a moustache. And we did a deep dive in this vocabulary, and we spoke for at least 30 minutes on beards, moustaches, and facial hair. Believe it or not. That was back in episode 560. Go to inglespodcast.com if you're interested in learning lots of vocabulary connected to beards, moustaches, and hair on your face.
Just a cultural note on tendencies. Certainly here in Spain, and I think in the UK as well, as far as I know, moustaches are making a comeback. For a while, moustaches were not that popular. They were very popular until the late 1980s, maybe the early 90s. Then they were not popular at all. But now they're becoming very popular again. I know quite a few men who are growing moustaches without a beard. it's coming back in again. So this is April 2026 when we're recording this, and mustaches are making a comeback.
Yeah, and I've noticed that men tend to have 2 or 3 days of growth on their face. So it's not exactly a beard. It's kind of what you have. It starts to become a beard, but it's not quite a beard, and that's really fashionable and it looks good on you. But whenever I try it and I ask my wife for her opinion, which is a big mistake, she always says to me, why don't you shave? You look like an old man who can't be bothered to shave. And I look trendy. This is what the men are doing now. They're wearing 2 or 3 days of growth on their face. No, Craig, shave it off. Get rid of it.
Actually, we've got a word for it. It's stubble.
Yes.
Stubble. So whenever you don't shave for a day or two, or maybe a week, so it's not quite a beard, that's stubble. Yeah, but if I'm not going to call myself old, but I'll admit to being middle-aged. If you grow stubble, unfortunately, it's not all the same color. So some is black and some is kind of white, gray. So you get the old salt and pepper, people call it. I have the old salt and pepper on the face.
Well, I've heard people call you spicy. Let's take a quick break here because I know you listen to this podcast to take your English to the next level. But what about your speaking? Is your fluency improving? Are you happy with your speaking skills? My conversation course focuses on making you a more confident and more fluent English speaker. You'll join me and a small group of motivated students, and we'll meet on Zoom and have topical discussions, role plays, debates, and presentations that will expand your vocabulary and help you express yourself effectively in English. So be proactive and take the first step towards becoming a confident and fluent English speaker. Send me an email today to craig@inglespodcast.com and I'll send you details of the next online conversation course. Thanks for listening. Now let's get back to the podcast. Now, your complexion is the color of your skin and your general appearance. You can have a fair complexion, usually blonde hair and pale skin, or you can have a dark complexion. Maybe people from Africa or South America have a darker complexion. And if you sunbathe and the color of your skin changes and becomes darker, that's a tanned complexion because you have a suntan.
Just to clarify, yes, you can say someone from Africa, let's say Sudan, for example, has dark skin, but you can also say they're black. In this day and age, I don't think there's any trouble at all saying people are black or white or brown. There was a sensitive period about maybe 20, 30, 40 years ago where some people preferred to say colored. But now I think colored has gone out of favor again and people are back to saying black and white. And I think most black people prefer to be called black now.
True, but you wouldn't say that someone has black skin.
I would.
Would you?
Yeah, for sure.
I would say they're black.
Okay, right, yeah. But you could say, okay, you got
fair skin.
All right, yeah.
Dark skin, maybe.
That's true. Yeah, we don't tend to say he's got black skin. We just say he's black.
Or black complexion. Wouldn't
normally say that. That's true. But when you if I asked you what color is his skin, I'd say black. Yeah, even though obviously it's not literally black, it's a dark color. But it's true. It doesn't usually collocate. We don't say black skin. We just say he's black. Or what color is his skin? It's black. But it's true. We don't say black skin. Yeah. But don't have any complex about that. You can say black. You can say white. You can say brown. I've never liked the expression colored. I've never liked it.
Me neither.
I've never said it because I consider it actually a bit racist. It's like, okay, so if someone's colored, then if you're white, what, you're not colored? But isn't white a color? Is my way of looking at it. So white doesn't count as a color, but other things do. I've always thought it was stupid. So I've always said black and white. And then a lot of people will say brown for Asian people.
True.
That's the most common categorization. But you can say dark for black people. You can say dark for Asian people. You can say dark for some Spanish people, particularly if they have Arab heritage and they come from Andalusia. You could call them dark as well.
Moving on to eyes, you can have dark eyes as well as a dark complexion. You can have brown eyes, and you can have piercing eyes. You might know the word for piercing when you think of body piercing, rings in your ears or ring in your nose, in your lips, etc., in your lip. But you can also have piercing eyes, which means that there is a very intense appearance to somebody's eyes. They tend to be a light color, maybe blue or green. And when they look at you, it's kind of like they're piercing a hole in you, and they're very intense. Or you can have bright eyes. Bright eyes.
Oh, yes.
Burning like
Fire, was it?
fire.
Or Watership Down, the thing all about the rabbits.
Yep.
Yeah.
Bright
By
eyes.
Art Garfunkel.
That's right. Well remembered.
Now, one thing I sadly have to admit that I have is a receding hairline. I'm not bald, and I don't have any bald patches yet, but where my hair meets my forehead is going back. It's not as far down as it used to be. I have a receding hairline. So to recede is to go backwards.
Yeah, my hairline's receding as well, unfortunately. Moving on to your cheeks, either side of your mouth, your cheeks, if they're a little bit fatty, there's a little bit of meat or quite a bit of skin there, especially on a newborn baby. You know, these babies, and they're so pretty and so lovely, and you want to take their cheeks and just pinch them, just go easy. Well, that's a chubby cheek. So you can have chubby cheeks, a little bit full, a bit fat. And a baby can be chubby as well. That's chubby. A chubby baby, while they're developing, while they're growing, they tend to have quite a lot of flesh on their limbs, and it makes them look cuddly and lovely and chubby.
Now, there's no problem at all if a baby has chubby cheeks. They're supposed to. But if a baby had a double chin, I would worry seriously about its health. A double chin is for older people, and it's because you've become a bit fat or your skin has become a bit loose, and it looks like you have two chins.
Or three.
Or three, or maybe even four. So, you know, when the skin hangs down below your face, whenever you put your face up tight against your own neck, it makes it look like you've got an extra chin under your real chin. That's your double chin or triple chin.
Or quadruple chin. in my case, if you have slight indentations in your cheek, so the skin goes in a little bit, that can be quite attractive. That's called a dimple. If you have dimples in your face, then the skin goes in a little, and it's like a little indentation at the side of your face. So dimples.
Or also in your chin. Some people have it in their chin. It can be the side of your cheeks, or it can be in your chin. Some people have a dimple in their chin. There was someone whose trademark look was the dimple. Let me see if I get the right one. Who was it? That actor who did Spartacus. What's his name? It's on the
Kirk
tip.
Douglas?
Kirk Douglas. Not Michael Douglas, but his dad, Kirk Douglas.
Yeah, he had dimples.
That was his trademark look. He had a dimple on the chin, which drove women crazy. They thought it made him look great. His dimple was in his chin.
You can have bags under your eyes. Not literally. There are no supermarket plastic bags under your eyes. But if you, for example, you don't sleep, or you have loose flesh or loose skin under your eyes look tired, and we call those bags under the eyes. So it can be a permanent feature of your face, or it can be something temporary if you are not sleeping very well, for example, and you just, your eyes look a bit puffy or enlarged.
Another thing which most people don't like to have is sticky out ears. If your ears stick out, they extend quite far away from the side of your head. You have sticky out ears. Sometimes in England, I don't think they say it much in America, but people sometimes call it cauliflower ears as well. So if your ears are very noticeable, you have sticky out ears.
And you can also have a bald patch. If you're bald, you have no hair on your head. But if it's a patch, then it's only a small area. Some men, for example, have an area on the top of their head that's bald. and that's a bald patch. They can have it at the front of their head, and that's another bald patch. All of these words that we've mentioned up to now collocate with to have or to get. So he's got a bald patch, or she has a double chin. All of those features are with he has or she has or he's got or she's got. But there are a couple that you can just say he's or she's. For example, he's thinning on top. So they were using the verb to thin, which means the hair is falling out. If someone's thinning on top, then they're losing their hair. They're not bald yet, but they are progressively becoming bald. And another one is to actually go bald. So if you lose all of your hair, he's bald, he has no hair.
Craig, do you know anybody who went bald when they were very young? Some men do.
Yes, good friend of mine, Graham. Yeah, I think he went bald in his mid-20s. So fairly early, he lost his hair. Yeah.
There's a comedian who's very famous for his baldness that I like very much, Larry David. And I love that he makes jokes about it. He quite often talks about the bald community. I quite like the way he makes fun of himself. You know, it's like that. Everyone knows that the bald community is amongst the most distinguished in the world. And there's something about it. A bald man just seems to create an image of, oh, he's distinguished, he's bald. You've got to listen to him. He must know what he's talking about. All bald men know what they're talking about, is the stereotype.
And sometimes you want to put some of these adjectives together. For example, he's got short, curly hair, or she has a brown shoulder-length hair. But where do you put those adjectives? What order do they go in? Well, we've done a full podcast about this. If you go to inglespodcast.com/92, which was a long time ago, then you'll learn the rules and the way that we order adjectives before the noun, and that will help you with this area of grammar. We did that with our friend Martin, if you remember, Reza. Order of adjectives before a noun, inglespodcast.com/92.
Let's get on to height. There's obviously not as much to say about height as there is about hair or facial expressions. You can be tall or you can be short.
Or vertically challenged.
Yes, if you want to be funny. Yeah. You wouldn't say that in serious language. That's just to be funny. So you could be rather tall, unexpectedly tall, or you could be rather short. You could also be, as I consider I am, average height. I'm not tall, but I wouldn't call myself short either. Although, of course, it's all relative. In Norway, they probably think I'm quite short. But in Ecuador, they probably think I'm pretty tall. But I would consider myself average height. And when I was a kid, I was actually quite lanky.
Is that lanky with an L?
Lanky.
Not with a W.
Not with a W, no. No. I was lanky. Oh, no, not with a W. I was relatively tall and thin, and I moved in a really awkward way. So lanky is not just about the height and you being thin. It's you just look uncomfortable. So now I'm too fat to be lanky. I've put on too much weight, so I can't call myself lanky anymore.
Moving on to build, and when I say build, we're not constructing anything here. We're just talking about the type of body you have, your bone structure, and your general overall appearance, what your body looks like. Now, try to keep away, if possible, from using words like fat or skinny or thin, because these words can be a bit rude or impolite. Much more polite if somebody is a bit skinny, a bit thin. Just call them slim or slender. Someone with a slender figure or someone with a slim build is much more polite. You can also be a bit overweight. Notice how I softened overweight by using the adverbial expression a bit or slightly overweight. A bit on the heavy side is how I would describe myself, although maybe I wouldn't use a bit. I'd probably use very on the heavy side. But you can soften these expressions with using a bit or quite.
You could also say that someone is quite plump. Plump. That's a nice way of saying a bit on the heavy side. Craig referred to himself earlier as being quite stocky. He's well built, stocky. Yeah, he's not thin. I wouldn't call him fat, but he's not thin. He's stocky. I hope he doesn't take it badly, but I wouldn't say he's that muscular.
How dare you? Take that back. How dare you?
I've seen worse cases, such as myself, but neither of us are particularly muscular. We don't look very athletic. We aren't toned. We don't spend hours and hours in the gym. We spend hours and hours podcasting, which isn't going to make you toned.
It's not going to make you very muscular, is it?
We could lose a few pounds is the last way we can think of saying you're a little bit on the heavy side. We could lose a few pounds. Let's put it like that.
And moving on to another section describing someone's overall attractiveness. Attractiveness is the noun, and overall is generally speaking. So how can you describe how attractive someone is? Well, you can call them attractive. That's a lovely positive adjective. She's an attractive lady. He's an attractive man. Someone can be good looking, which is also a positive adjective. And if you're speaking about men, you can call them handsome. As my mother used to often say, he's a handsome young man. Yes, very handsome. What about ladies?
We don't use that word handsome for ladies. We prefer the words pretty or beautiful. Pretty is more common for younger ladies, and beautiful can be young or old. However, we do also talk about pretty or beautiful babies, regardless of their sex, male or female. Also, for ladies, it's quite common to use the words gorgeous or stunning or sexy. Be careful with sexy, though. I wouldn't say someone is sexy to their face unless you know them pretty well. Safer to say gorgeous or stunning. And one thing I definitely would never say to any woman's face about her is that she's plain. I would only ever use it behind her back. Because if a woman is plain, you're saying she's not that good looking.
You can use the word plain with chocolate. Plain chocolate doesn't have a lot of sugar or milk in it.
Now you're talking. Yeah.
And one thing I'd add with pretty and beautiful, in American English, it's very common to hear the word cute. She's very cute. Also with men, isn't it? You can say that a man is cute if you're a female.
Yeah. If a man says about another man, let's be honest, you're gay. Men don't say it about other men unless you're gay. Only women say it about men, or you don't. If I would never say to Craig, "Hey, you're cute," because he'd be thinking, "Okay, Reza's gay. I never knew that."
Reza, how much do you judge a person by their appearance in the first 5 seconds?
I would like to think not much, but I have a funny feeling I do. I think it's inevitable. Psychologists say we all do, whether we like it or not.
Yeah.
What about you?
Yeah, the same. I mean, I used to judge people more, I think, looking at things like piercings, tattoos, heavy makeup, perhaps, or if a person is a scruffy dresser. If you're scruffy, then you don't really care about your hair or your clothes. Or maybe someone wearing designer clothes, I might have an opinion. But these days, I've moderated my view, so I try not to judge people as much.
And are there any distinctive features that catch your eye or draw your attention?
Well, I think I've got a big nose. You can have a big nose, you can have a long nose, you can have a Roman nose from the Romans, which is quite long and straight. And if it is quite big, then you can say it's Roman all over your face.
Yes.
Roman, never mind. Move on.
Lips can be described as full, the thick, or thin. So these days, most women strive towards, they go towards the look of having full lips, perhaps even with the help of Botox. Whereas if you have thin lips, there isn't much flesh there.
Yeah, I prefer thin lips. I think they're much more attractive. You can have freckles, freckles, which are brown marks on your skin. You're born with them. And freckles can be very attractive. And some people have freckles on their nose, on other parts of their face. Again, for all of these words, go to inglespodcast.com/620 for the full list of this vocabulary.
There are other marks that can be on your skin when you're born, which aren't necessarily freckles. There's all sorts of things. A general word you could use is a birthmark. You got it at birth. anything on your skin which makes that part look different to the rest of your skin is a birthmark. For example, it could be a mole. A mole is when you're white, it's easier to see when you're white, and you've got a little circular, dark, perhaps slightly raised collection of darker pigmentation. That's a mole. If it looks nice, some people might call it a beauty mark. A beauty mark is like a little mole, perhaps, which makes you look cute.
If it's an ugly mole, though, you could have the image of a witch who has a mole at the end of her nose and makes the witch look very ugly. If you're getting old, like I am, you start to have wrinkles. Be careful of the pronunciation. There's a W at the beginning there. WRINKELS. Small lines in your face. When you smile, when you laugh, you often have wrinkles at the sides of your eyes. But you can have wrinkles in many parts of your bodies, and that's a sign that you're getting old.
If you've had an injury or an operation, you might be left with a scar, SCAR. That's a line in your body where you once had a cut, but now it's healed. That would be from an accident. Or you might have a mark on your body, which you put there deliberately, a picture, which we all know is a tattoo, spelled TATTO.
Couple of expressions you can use to describe someone's appearance. You can say that he or she has a friendly smile or an engaging smile. If the smile is engaging, it grabs your attention in a nice way. It looks attractive. He has an engaging smile. Or you can have a serious expression on your face. And I think I need to smile more because I tend to look quite serious. And some people have told me that, I have a serious expression.
Apart from your body, there's also what you put on it to take into account. In other words, your style, your clothing. So let's start with the two opposites. At one end, we got casual, and at the other end, formal. So if you dress or look casual, you don't look formal. So if I'm going to a very special occasion, a wedding, for example, I'm going to dress formally. But if I'm just at home watching the TV on my own, I'm going to be dressed casually. What about the word smart, Craig? How would you define smart?
Smart would be clothes that are not necessarily formal. And for example, you could be wearing an open-necked shirt with no tie, maybe a sports jacket, which is not a jacket that you use to do sports. It's just a jacket with no matching trousers, so it's not a suit. And you're wearing very smart trousers, maybe not jeans. But dressing smart means that you're quite presentable, you're not casual, but you're also not particularly formal. So it's somewhere in the middle, and you look quite good, you look well dressed.
Some people are good at looking elegant. Not me, but some people are. That means they're dressed in a way that looks classy. They've just got class. They look good. They look elegant. Whereas other people, rather than elegant look, go for that sporty look. They look like the sort of person who likes running around, jogging, playing sport. They might often wear a sports top or a tracksuit. They might go for the sporty look.
Yeah, maybe they're wearing a hoodie or a sweatshirt, training shoes, sports shoes perhaps. You can say that someone is well dressed, so she's well dressed or he's well dressed. Other adjectives, a fashionable dresser, someone who is fashionable, wears the latest fashion. They can be trendy, which means they keep up with clothing trends. Again, that's being fashionable. And of course, a smart person, a smart dresser. And as we mentioned before, scruffy is untidy. A scruffy person will not take care of the clothes they're wearing. They don't really care what their hair looks like. Maybe they haven't shaved for a couple of days and they just look scruffy, which is the opposite of smart.
You can put the word like with the word look and say he looks like or she looks like. For example, imagine somebody looks really scruffy. You could say he looks like he hasn't changed his clothes and had a shower in 5 days. He looks like he hasn't changed his clothes. So look like, you're comparing him to something. Or It's very common also to compare people that talk about the spitting image. Don't worry, it's nothing to do with saliva. It's just an idiomatic expression. If you say he's the spitting image of his father, it simply means he looks really, really similar to his father.
Actually, there is a connection with saliva because I was curious about this expression, to be the spitting image of someone. And you're right, it does mean the perfect likeness of another person, but it comes from many, many, many years ago when the child looks so much like the parent, the mother or the father, that they might as well have been spat out of their mouth.
Oh, right.
So apparently that's where the expression comes from. If you're the spitting image of your mum or your dad, it's like you came out of their mouth, and it's another, like a copy of your parent.
Just to end, we got a few common phrases that you might like to use. You might say that, do you know Bob? Oh yeah, Bob. He's the kind of person who always dresses well. He likes to be well presented. He always dresses well.
And you could say that someone doesn't look bad for their age. They age well, you could say. Examples of that might be Pierce Brosnan, the actor. He's aged well. He looks good for his age. And Emma Thompson has also aged well. I don't think she's had any cosmetic surgery. She looks good for her age. She's aged well.
A nice way of saying that somebody isn't very attractive is to say, he's no oil painting. Specifically oil painting. I don't know why, but that's the expression. Does he look good? Well, no, he's no oil painting, if I'm honest.
She looks younger than she is a compliment, isn't it? If you're saying that someone doesn't look their age, then they look younger than they are.
And a very informal way, particularly in British English, to say that someone looks good, she's a looker. Yeah. Or if she doesn't look good, if she's plain, she's no looker. So you can be a looker or you can be no looker.
And something we definitely do not recommend you say to somebody's face is saying that they are as ugly as sin. If you commit a sin, you do something very irreligious, very nasty, very bad. So calling someone as ugly as sin is saying that they are extremely ugly. And never forget that Craig and Reza have the perfect faces for audio podcasting and perfect bodies for audio podcasting. But now it's your turn to practice your English. What do you usually notice first about someone? And do you think people judge others too much based on their appearance? We'd love to hear from you. Why not send us a voice message? Reza, how can people do that?
You could leave an audio message at speakpipe.com/Ingles podcast. Or you could even send an email with a comment or question to craig@inglespodcast.com or belfastreza@gmail.com.
And if you'd like to practice some of the vocabulary in this lesson, why don't you send us a voice message and describe yourself? That will be interesting. Use some of the vocabulary, and it will be lovely to get a voice recording, so that we can include it in a future episode and help you improve your English. Now, if you're a Spanish speaker and you want to improve your English with free and paid resources, why not visit the Mansion Ingles website at mansioningles.com. And for paid products, you can browse the online store at store.mansioningles.net.
If you'd like a full audio transcription of this podcast, we mean every single word that we say, well, you might consider joining our Patreon program. And as a Patreon member, as a way of saying thank you, you'll get the full audio transcription by email every week so that you can read every word. Also, you'll get the chance to take up a monthly invitation to join Craig for an informal chat on Zoom to practice your speaking. If you're interested, have a look at the link in the show notes. It's patreon.com/Ingles podcast.
Unfortunately, we can't mention everyone who's supporting us on Patreon. There are just too many of you wonderful people. But we will say hello and thank you to our new Patreon supporters who have joined us this month. And they are Pablo Arbert and Sue Chen. Thank you to you and to everyone who's supporting us on Patreon.
Craig, what are we going to talk about next week?
We're howling at the moon next week. We're talking about the moon, Moon vocabulary, collocations, expressions, lots of interesting facts and idioms, all connected to the moon. So please join us for that. And until then, have a lovely week ahead. Thank you for listening. This week it's goodbye from me.
And it's bye-bye from me.
The music in this podcast is by Pitts. The track is called See You Later.